Hello good people, and welcome back to another math video. This one on ordering fractions and decimals. Before we get right into comparing, I want to make a note about kind of why we have to do one of the things, one of our steps. We have to be working in the same thing when we're going to compare decimals or percents and fractions. And why is this? Well, I put this image of these cars in here. The Dodge Hellcat, this is an American car. It's going to measure its speed in miles per hour from the factory. The Porsche 911 is a German car. It's going to measure its speed in kilometers per hour because it's a German car. It's going to use kilometers. We could compare the speeds of these vehicles and say which one was faster, but first we would have to pick one of these units. I could pick miles per hour and convert the Porsche's speed to miles per hour. Or I could pick kilometers per hour and convert the Dodge's speed. But we would have to be looking at the same unit. That's a little bit like what we're going to do when we need to compare fractions or decimals or percents. Here's our first example. We're going to put these in order from least to greatest. And we have 60%, 5/8, and 62 hundredths. And again, kind of like the car example, we could work in decimals with all of these, or we could work in fractions with all of these, or we could work in percents with all of these. But we have to pick one. And the thing that we found out today in class is percents are possibly the easiest one for students to compare. So let's work in percents. Well, this one right here is already in percent. So that's simple. So on this next line kind of here, I'll just turn them into percents. So 60% is 60%. Over here, when we have a decimal, we can easily convert this into a percent. To do that, we just need to move our decimal point 2 places, 1, 2, to the right. And when we move that 2 places to the right, we can add in the percent symbol, and this is 62%. So that leaves us with 5/8. Here's the one that we have to work on. Now, in the previous video and in the other day in class, we saw how to turn a fraction into a decimal. Top dog in the house, so that's our 5, goes in the house. Other number outside, so we're going to divide 5 by 8. Does 8 go into 5? No, but we can add a decimal point right here. Bring it up, and we can add a 0 afterward. Does 8 go into 50? Yes, it would go 6 times. Times 8, 48. Subtract and get 2. Bring down another 0. 8 into 20, 2 times. Should be 16. Subtract and get 4. Bring down another 0. 8 into 40, 5 times. So now I have my decimal right here. 625 thousandths, or 0.625. And again, I could take that decimal right here. I could move my decimal point 2 places, and then I would have a percent. So this is actually 62.5%. Well, once I'm looking at all percents, 60, 62.5, and 62, then it's a little bit easier for me to put these in order from least to greatest. So of course that would be 60%, then 62%, then 62.5%. But let's write the original numbers that we were given. So from least to greatest it would be 60% right here, then 62 hundredths right here, and then 5/8. We also talked a bit about comparing numbers. In this example, I'm trying to determine which number is larger, either 5 and 5/10 or 5 and 2/5. The first as a decimal and the second as a mixed number fraction. And what's going to go here in the blank is either a greater than, a less than, or an equal symbol. So let's get started. The first thing I notice is that both of these numbers have a large whole number right out here in the front. They both have a 5. So I don't even really need to worry about that when I'm trying to compare them. They both have that 5. So really what I'm comparing here is this 0.5 and this 2/5. So we know that it's pretty easy now to convert a fraction into a decimal. We know how to do this, so let's do it. Top dog in the house, so my 2 goes in the house. I'm going to divide by 5. Does 5 go into 2? No, it doesn't, but I can add a 0 after I put my decimal point in. Does 5 go into 20? Yes, 4 times. 4 times 5 is 20. No remainder, done. So really, if I rewrite this, I'm comparing 5.5 to 5.4. Once I do this, this is very straightforward. 5.5 is of course larger, so we would say that that's greater. One way that this can be a little tricky is if we have a negative number. So how about negative 3.88 or negative 3 and 88 hundredths, and we're comparing that to negative 3 and 7/8. Again, they both have this 3 out front, so really what we're comparing is the 88 hundredths and the 7/8. So let's turn our 7/8 into a decimal. Remember, top dog in the house. So, does 8 go into 7? No, but I can add my decimal point and a 0 and say, does 8 go into 70? Yes, 8 would go into 70 8 times, which would give me 64. Subtract, bring down another 0. This would go 7 times. Subtract, bring down another 0. 8 and 2, 40. Would go 5 times. And that's going to go evenly. So I'm done with my division. So just for sake of being neat, I'm going to rewrite this a little bit over here. And so now, really what I'm comparing is negative 3.88 to negative 3.875. I notice right away that this has 2 places and this has 3. Well, that's kind of weird. But I also know if I am working behind the decimal, I can add a 0 at the end and not change the value. So I can add a 0 here. It doesn't change the value, and now both numbers have 3 places, and that might make it a little bit easier when I look at it. So let's compare. The 3's are the same. Okay. The first 8, that's the same. And the second 8 and a 7. So now we're not the same. So this one right here begins to look like the bigger number. 3.88 is bigger than 3.87. Oh, but wait, they're negative. So that means that this number, negative 3.88 or negative 3 and 88 hundredths, is farther away from 0 than our other number. If it's farther from 0 and it's a negative number, then it's actually smaller. So we're going to say that negative 3 and 88 hundredths is smaller than negative 3 and 875 thousandths. Alright, that's it. Short little video. You can watch it a few times, and we'll see you tomorrow.